My name is Cleo Fields, and I want to be president of the United States of America when I grow up, and everybody laughed, including the teacher. So if I was in the caucus, I would just give them my experience, and I would say, you know, W.B. Du Bois started to teach so Rosa Parks could take a seat, and Rosa Parks took a seat so we could all take a stand. We took a stand so Martin Luther could march. Martin marched so Jesse Jackson could run.
Go on, Cleo Fields.
And Jesse Jackson ran so Obama could win. That would be now.
I was not just disappointed, not just dismayed, but speaking personally, somewhat disgusted when the U.S. Commission on Presidential Debates, after being lobbied very hard to choose New Orleans as a site for one of the upcoming presidential debates, to focus the attention of the campaigns and of the country on this particular problem. The commission, for its own reasons, chose not to do that.
You know, Tavis, I'm glad that you're so fired up about this issue. You know, but we don't need a presidential debate here. You know, I'm just going to be honest with you. You never saw me come out and say anything about that because I know how things work in this country. They weren't going to come here because they weren't going to try to expose America to the soft underbelly of what we saw when so many people were suffering during Katrina. So the entire world saw what happened in New Orleans, and I have people come from all over the world to come to see me to talk about how they can help, and they are amazed and wondering how this could happen in America. How could America not take care of its own? How could America not send every resource that we had to help some people that were suffering that couldn't get themselves out of harm's way? There started to be an issue of what is New Orleans going to look like in the future? Can we socially re-engineer this city to be something different? And some people started talking to the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and saying, well, maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe some people shouldn't come back. You know, they were violent before Katrina. So maybe they shouldn't come back. And that's when I started to step forward and say, oh, no, we're not going to have this. We're not going to have a moratorium on where folks can rebuild this city. We're going to rebuild all this city, particularly the lower Ninth Ward and New Orleans East. The president talks about $120 billion coming down to New Orleans or coming down to the Gulf Coast. Guess what? We ain't seen much of a dime of that money. If anything, we've got $200 million, and that's loans. $200 million plus of loan money. The rest of the money, who knows where it's gone. It's starting to flow now. But at 2.5 years, the first real money the city of New Orleans got was this November 2007. And now we're starting. So we have rebuilt this city in spite of bureaucracy, in spite of failed promises. And we're going to continue.
I'm a pastor of a ministry that helps men who are struggling with addiction. And I said, the size of the storm, I know it's going to be bad. Never thought about the water situation. We battened down our buildings. The storm came in on a Sunday night. Monday morning, the water started coming in. Our ministry is right across the street from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, and we were holed up there. Then we started getting reports of people being stranded in the community. We left the seminary, went back to our building. We found 2 small boats. One of the brothers hot wired. It had a 5 horsepower motor. They were very small boats.
You can't never sleep on the skills of a brother.
Yes, brother. And the other boat didn't have a motor. And we would walk as far as we could until the water got up to here. We would put people who were on the rooftops in trees standing out front of their houses on cars. We would put them in a boat. We would take them to Sheffman Highway. We would take them to our building, feed them. We still had gas at that time, so we would feed them, clothe them, and there were people coming in on airboats that were taking people from our ministry to the interstate and getting them out. We rescued about 70 people, and that Thursday after the storm, we decided that we needed to leave because the looting got too bad. People pulled guns on us, so sin and evil was let loose.
All right, Pastor Mel, I thank you. I thank you. Coming up next on the State of the Black Union.
And don't act like you Negroes always for Barack. You were saying the white folk might not vote for him. So